Imagine yourself in a bustling ancient marketplace. What do you use to trade? Well, thousands of years ago, the answer to that question would have been as diverse as the societies themselves. From the coastal regions of India to the vast plains of Africa, early societies found creative solutions to facilitate trade and commerce. In the earliest days of human civilization, money as we know it did not exist. Instead, people relied on a system known as barter, where goods and services were directly exchanged for other goods and services. The barter system had its limitations, primarily the problem of double coincidence of wants. To overcome this, societies began to use various items as a medium of exchange. These items, or what we might call the first forms of currency, included shells, beads, livestock, and even salt. Take shells, for instance. In Africa, cowrie shells were widely used as currency. They were small, durable, and rare enough to maintain value, but common enough to be useful. In the Pacific Islands, rye stones, which were large circular stones, were used as a form of currency. There were societies that used livestock as a form of currency. In these societies, the wealth of an individual or family was often measured by the number of animals they owned. Let's not forget about salt. In ancient Rome, soldiers were sometimes paid in salt, which was a highly valued commodity. In fact, the word salary comes from the Latin word salarium, which originally referred to a soldier's allowance for the purchase of salt. Early forms of currency were essential in facilitating trade and commerce, setting the stage for the more sophisticated monetary systems that would follow. So from shells to livestock, the earliest forms of money were as diverse as the societies that used them. But as societies evolved, so did their forms of currency. Let's dive into the next chapter in our journey through the history of money. As societies grew, so did the need for a more standardized form of currency. The bustling marketplaces of ancient civilizations needed a reliable way to measure the value of goods and services. Enter the age of metal coins, an era that would revolutionize the concept of money. Precious metals such as gold and silver bore intrinsic value due to their rarity and desirability. They were durable, convenient, and most importantly, could be divided into smaller units without losing their value. A breakthrough indeed. These qualities made them an ideal choice for a medium of exchange. Now imagine a shiny gold or coin in your hand. It's not just a piece of metal, it's a symbol of authority and trust. Coins were minted by governments and rulers, often embossed with intricate designs and symbols. These designs weren't just for show, they played a crucial role in demonstrating the authority of the issuer and instilling confidence in the users. Coins weren't just a medium of exchange. They were a way to communicate power and ideology. Emperors and kings would stamp their portraits, important symbols, and even propaganda on these tiny circular canvases. Coins were like miniature billboards, promoting the authority of the ruler to every corner of the empire. The advent of metal coins also led to the establishment of mints, specialized facilities where coins were produced. This marked an important shift from the haphazard barter system to a more organized, state-controlled economy. In the grand tapestry of financial history, the introduction of coins was a defining moment. It was the first time a standardized, universally accepted form of money was used. This facilitated trade, improved economic efficiency, and paved the way for complex economic systems to develop. Coins revolutionized trade, providing a more efficient and standardized form of currency. This age of metal coins set the stage for the financial innovations that would follow, shaping the world of commerce as we know it today. Indeed, the humble coin was a small object that made a big difference, but as trade expanded, so did the need for a more universal form of currency. Let's see how that unfolded. Imagine yourself on the bustling Silk Road, where goods and currency flowed from one civilization to another. This legendary pathway, stretching from China to the Mediterranean, was more than just a highway for merchants. It was a conduit for culture, ideas, and of course, currency. As civilizations grew, their economies became increasingly complex. Trade, once a local affair, expanded beyond borders and continents. This expansion required a common medium of exchange, a system to equate the value of goods and services, and that's where currency came into play. The Silk Road, a network of trade routes that linked the East and the West, was a major catalyst in this process. Merchants traversing these routes carried not only exotic goods like silk, spices, and precious stones, but also various forms of currency. Gold and silver coins, for instance, were widely accepted and easily portable. This exchange of currency was not just about facilitating trade, it was about establishing economic relationships. When merchants accepted foreign coins, they were indirectly acknowledging the authority and credibility of the issuing government. This mutual recognition helped foster economic ties between civilizations, paving the way for global commerce. But the Silk Road was not the only game in town. Maritime trade routes, for example, played a crucial role in the economic development of civilizations along the Mediterranean and the Indian Ocean. These sea routes, known as the spice routes, were vital for the exchange of goods and, yes, currency. Just like the Silk Road, these maritime routes allowed for the flow of different forms of currency, further promoting economic integration and cooperation. From the Roman denarius to the Chinese yuan, these coins tell a story of economic interdependence and cultural exchange. So, whether it was over land or sea, these trade routes facilitated the exchange of not just goods but also currency. They were the arteries of ancient economies connecting different parts of the world and enabling the flow of wealth. Trade routes not only facilitated the exchange of goods but also the exchange of currency, paving way for global commerce. But as trade grew, so did the need for a more convenient form of currency. Let's see what happened next. Meanwhile, in ancient China, a new form of currency was taking flight. As the economy expanded, merchants and traders sought a more convenient way to conduct business. This led to the invention of paper money, a revolutionary idea that would forever change the world of commerce. The first money, known as flying cash, was essentially a promissory note that represented a certain amount of coinage. These notes were issued by merchants and accepted by others in the marketplace, facilitating transactions without the need for bulky coins. But it was not just the convenience that made paper money popular. It was also a safer way to transport large amounts of wealth, reducing the risk of theft. This innovation didn't stay to China for long. The concept of paper money began to spread across the Silk Road, reaching the Middle East and Europe. By the time Marco Polo visited China in the 13th century, the use of paper money was widespread, a fact he noted with astonishment in his travel logs. Paper money had several advantages over metal coins. It was lightweight, easy to carry, and could represent large denominations, making it ideal for large transactions. Moreover, it allowed for the expansion of credit, paving the way for modern banking and finance. As the use of paper money became more widespread, governments began to regulate its issuance. This led to the establishment of central banks, which were entrusted with maintaining the stability of the currency and the economy. The invention of paper money was a game changer in the history of money. It facilitated trade and commerce, enabled the growth of economies, and laid the foundation for the modern financial system. It's hard to imagine today's world without paper money, from buying a cup of coffee to closing multi-million-dollar deals. Lightweight and easy to transport, paper money revolutionized the way people conducted business. And while today we see a shift towards digital currencies, the principles laid down by this ancient innovation continue to shape our financial world. But how did we get from paper money to the currencies we use today? Let's find out. In medieval Europe, a new era of banking and finance was dawning. The hustle and bustle of trade and commerce began to require more than just the exchange of physical goods or coins. This gave rise to a new practice, banking. Banking in its earliest form was quite different from what we know today. It was more about managing and transferring wealth. The wealthiest families of Europe, such as the Medicis of Florence, set up banks to lend money to monarchs and finance their wars. These families became the early financiers of Europe, and their influence helped shape the future of banking and finance. As trade continued to flourish, merchants and bankers needed a more efficient way to handle large transactions. This led to the invention of promissory notes and bills of exchange. A promissory note was a written promise to pay a certain amount of money to a specified person at a future date. A bill of exchange, on the other hand, was a written order by one person directing another to pay a certain sum on a specific date to a third person. These instruments were precursors to the modern checks banknotes we use today. This period was a significant turning point in the history of money. It marked the transition from tangible commodities like gold and silver to paper money, which represented a promise to pay the bearer amount indicated on the note. This was a revolutionary concept. the idea that a piece of paper could hold such value. The role of banking continued to evolve over the centuries, with new practices and regulations introduced to ensure its stability and integrity. The rise of central banks, the introduction of fractional reserve banking, and the emergence of modern financial institutions all played a part shaping the banking system we know today. From merchants to bankers, the evolution of modern currency was a collaborative effort. But as economies grew, so did the need for a more flexible form of currency. Let's see how that came about. Fast forward to the 20th century, where the value of money was no longer tied to a physical commodity. Instead, it was tied to the faith and credit of the government that issued it. This marked the dawn of the age of fiat currency. Fiat, from the Latin word for "let it be done," represents a shift in our understanding of money. Instead of being a tangible asset like gold or silver, it's essentially a social contract. A $100 bill, for instance, has no intrinsic value. It's just a piece of paper. But it carries value because the government declares it does, and because we, as a society, agree to believe in that declaration. But this wasn't an easy transition. Think about it. Trusting a piece of paper as a store of value requires a leap of faith. It was a radical departure from thousands of years of human history, yet it offered unparalleled benefits. Fiat currency is easier to produce, lighter to carry, and simpler to regulate than precious metals. It's also more flexible, allowing governments to control the supply of money to meet economic needs. The United States, for example, severed the link between gold and the dollar in the 1970s. This move, known as the Nixon shock, allowed the U.S. government to manage its economy more effectively. It could now adjust the money supply to combat inflation or stimulate growth, tools it wouldn't have had under a gold standard. Of course, fiat currency it's susceptible to inflation if too much money is printed, and it relies heavily on the stability and credibility of the government that issues it. But it's proven to be an effective and enduring form of money underpinning the global economy for over a century. With the advent of fiat currency, the value of money was no longer tied to gold or silver, but to the promise of the government. This shift marked a pivotal moment in the evolution of currency, paving the way for the digital revolution that would soon follow. Let's see how that revolution is unfolding. In today's digital age, the concept of money is undergoing yet another transformation. We're moving away from paper and metal, stepping into an era where currency takes on a digital form. This leap is changing not just how we transact, but also how we perceive the value of money. Digital currencies like Bitcoin and Ethereum have taken center stage, introducing us to the world of cryptocurrencies. These digital assets operate independently from traditional banking systems, leveraging blockchain technology to ensure secure and transparent transactions. Cryptocurrencies have a range of advantages. They reduce the need for intermediaries, making transactions faster and less expensive. They can also provide services to those without access to traditional banking, a potential game changer for millions around the world. But it's not just cryptocurrencies that are making waves. We're also seeing the rise of digital versions of traditional currencies known as central bank digital currencies, or CBDCs. Countries like China and Sweden are already testing their own digital currencies, aiming to combine the efficiency of cryptocurrency with the stability and trust of a central bank. Digital currencies, however, are not without challenges. Their volatility can lead to significant financial risks. There's also the concern about privacy and security, given the digital nature of these assets. And let's not forget the regulatory hurdles that need to be overcome for widespread adoption. Despite these challenges, it's clear that digital currencies are here to stay. They represent the next step in the evolution of money, a step that brings us closer to a world where transactions are instant, global, and inclusive. As we step into the future, the evolution of money continues. Who knows what innovations lie ahead? Let's wrap up our journey through the history of currency. And there you have it, a journey through the history of currency. We've traced the fascinating evolution of money, beginning with the simple trade of everyday objects in ancient civilizations and the advent of metal coins. We ventured through the bustling trade routes of the medieval era and witnessed the rise of paper money in ancient China. We explored the emergence of banking and the advent of modern currency in medieval Europe. Then we saw how the world shifted to fiat currency in the 20th century, where the value of money is no longer tied to physical commodities, but to the trust in government. And finally, we arrived in the digital age, where cryptocurrencies and digital currencies are reshaping our understanding of money. The future of currency is evolving rapidly, promising exciting developments on the horizon. We hope you've enjoyed this exploration of the evolution of money. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share.